Shalom, this is Rabbi Moshe Otero with the Ways of Israel, and we had a wonderful Shabbat, and of course the reports going left and right of new anti-Semitic attacks throughout the community. The latest one is that of Hollandale, where a gentleman walks out screaming foul languages, and I posted up the media watch on that. It's very, very pathetic that we're experiencing such a rise in anti-Semitic attack in the United States. Was it expected? Yes. Unfortunately, I would have to say yes. Realizing how our politics in this country has gone way down as a result of the previous administration supporting Israel, the Jews, and the idea of going against hatred. And we see the bursting forth of all this hatred on the scene. In a way, you can say we should have expected it. If you didn't expect it, you should have. And it's very sad that now we have to keep our eyes really wide open. But I ask myself, and it's a question, is, will the police department be there to protect, or must we protect ourselves in the event of a gang drive-by, as it were, like we saw take place in Los Angeles on the west side? Obviously, these individuals are thugs, they're criminals. These are not peaceful marchers. They're as peaceful as the BLM marchers were in the summer. These are individuals who basically have a lot of hatred and have an agenda to create more chaos. This is why the BLM groups support the pro-Palestinian marches and uprising here in the United States. As a matter of fact, I was just looking at statistics. In Florida, there was about 150,000 Arab Palestinians. In New York, which is the largest concentration, ranging at about 250,000 to 300,000. In Michigan and Chicago, they each share about 150,000 in each state. And it's interesting information that I was able to garnish from a Google search. You can do it yourself and see the numbers of Palestinians, Arabs, who basically are part of the congressional representation in Congress. Obviously, I think we need to call out on a political level those Palestinians that are promoting and provoking, including this Alexander Ocasio, who is one of the biggest promoters, and also one of our own turncoats, Bernie Sanders, who should be ashamed of himself. But we know and we realize that we have among ourselves a big problem, as well as having a lot of Mosarim, the traitors of the Jewish people, even in big places, high places. So it should not be a surprise that we have such individuals, even from our own family, involved in trying to promote such an ideology of hate promoted by such politicians. Obviously, I've been warning about this even before Biden took power, and we're seeing it flourish because our leaders have not been able to voice out these concerns. Until something happens drastically, where perhaps someone among our community goes crazy and decide to take the law into their own hand and begin to defend the Jewish community. And I'm talking about that can't happen because only to a certain extent will our community be able to handle so much stress, so much pressure. And this is becoming a major issue. I would not doubt it that we may have some type of shooting in the Palestinian or Arab community as retaliation as a result of these anti-Semitic attacks, which have not been provoked, but obviously they feel they need to try to start some type of attack on the Jewish community. But our Jewish community is ready, and many of us are prepared with our guns to respond in the event that that tries to take place here. Obviously, the main issue is hold back until when will we hold back as we continue to see this type of action from individuals and groups being promoted with hatred and all this. Should there be hate crimes? Yes, no doubt about it. And these individuals should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But the reality is, it's only one side. It's unilateral. It's only one side. And here we have the issue of what we're facing. Just imagine you're taking your kids to school, and all of a sudden a bunch of hoodlums dressed with the Palestinian garb come in and tries to attempt to do harm. It is a very scary situation. My personal opinion on the politics in the Middle East is very clear. I don't think any Jew will be safe until we create a greater Israel. And we push back, as Meir Kahane said many, many times, and make sure we have them create their own state away from the Eretz Israel area and create a greater state of Israel. That's my position. I believe all of Jerusalem should return back to all Jewish control, as well as Hebron and other areas that's well known as the old ancient lands of Israel. I'm 100% in favor of that. But that, of course, will provoke and cause more talk. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, there's a lot of videos. As a matter of fact, I posted several videos here on Facebook in English, and Facebook took it down because of the obvious videos showed and demonstrated that the Palestinians were involved in setting aflame the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Of course, they can't have that. They're trying to blame the Jews for having done that. Believe it or not, many missiles came close to hitting Al-Aqsa, and like I said, flames were coming out from Al-Aqsa as a result of Palestinians, not Israelis. And therefore, I hope and pray that Prime Minister Netanyahu will do the right thing and never return back the control of Al-Aqsa to the Palestinian authorities, because it's only going to insinuate more problems in the future. Now, President Biden came out recently and says that, he will support Israel. Yay! Finally, he did something right. But those are very cautioned words, because he holds to a two-state solution, which I personally believe is a complete failure. You cannot have a two-state solution when you have the party that you're trying to negotiate anything saying very clearly they only want one thing, and that is the genocide of the Jewish people that's in the land and outside of the land. So obviously they will never come to the agreement of recognizing the validity of the state of Israel. So you're basically walking on a line that's completely contrary. They're not going to do it. Their charters will not allow them to do it. The people will not allow that to take place. And even if they were to say, yes, we agree to recognize Israel, like the other Arab neighbors have done, the Palestinian people are a problematic people in general. If you don't know that, take a look at history and you'll see that every single Arab country around and surrounding Israel had problems with the Palestinian people due to the fact that Hamas and Hezbollah are behind this entire move, and not until these individuals are neutralized. And I know what I mean by neutralized. It means no longer in this world. And unfortunately, we have to talk in these terms, because the fact on the ground is only when that happens will we realize that we will have the opportunity to be able to really see peace in this world. The next world, we got to the next world. Unfortunately, as my Rabbi Meir Kahane many times said, we can't get along. If they were a people of peace, of love, of caring for family, we can negotiate anything. But these are not that type of people. These are people that have vengeance, they have hatred, they have pain, they have even self-identity problems, they have psychological problems. They're literally, as what our Torah talks about, they're born People are not wired right. They have the mindset to destroy and kill. They walk around with knives in order to inflict harm to fellow human beings. They don't care about life. How can you negotiate? And this is something I have to ask all the leaders in the Democratic Party. How can you negotiate with someone who wants your life put out? How can you even talk to them? How can you even speak to them if what they want, if what they desire is your death and your removal off the face of the planet? You can't. These are evil individuals who later utilize the media to their best interest in order to get the empathy and the apathy of the individuals so they can be able to rebuild again their armory. This is why the representative of Biden was sent there to Gaza, but not to speak to the leaders of Hamas. But what they don't understand, this administration, is the leaders of Hamas are the leaders of the Palestinian people. They have been duly elected to represent them, and thus you cannot go to Gaza and speak to the Palestinian Authority without speaking to those in Gaza, those who basically control the armaments and are getting them from Iran. This obviously is a powder keg for the administration, who wants to deal with Iran, who wants to renegotiate the deal that was completely closed out under Trump. And if they dare do that, we are going to see a major problem in the Middle East. My friends, this issue, it's only a temporary ceasefire, but the problem is still there. What's the problem? What is the innate problem that we have in the Middle East? Very simple. They hate us. They hate us, they hate us, they hate us. And this hate has come to blossom by a plan to try to destroy us off the face of the world. Not only do we have the problem already in house, we have this problem in Congress. We have members in Congress doing the bid of Hamas. And there are no one speaking up and say, you know what, these individuals basically are in cahoots with our enemies. Why haven't that been done? Why has that not been called out? Why has not this investigation been brought into the House of Congress? You know, those of you who think the insurrection took place January 6th, when Trump did his march, which he did not, and there's not enough proof to indicate that was the case, although many other groups tried to utilize that moment to take advantage, including the people from Pelosi, who basically utilized it to be able to try to somehow bring all these false accusations to President Trump. But had that taken place, believe me, we would have probably been able to clean out a lot of people in the White House, in the Congress, and remove them from office on a very strong basis. You know, there's a part of me that says, you know what? Oh, I'm there. We need to basically root out of Congress all the corrupt politicians that are there causing all the problems that we have. Unfortunately, that's how I feel, and I'm sure many other Americans feel the same way. We don't trust our Congress. We don't trust our voter system. And yet every single audit coming out is coming the same way. A lot of issues are popping up, but our wonderful narratives of the press and the media are keeping a very tight lid under what is being discovered. So my friends, there's a lot of things that's happening still, and it's still in flow, including the whole vaccination thing. You know, why is such a push to have every single individual vaccinated? And I won't get into that one. But I'm just telling you, there's so many different things happening at the same time that you really have to wonder what is really going on. Obviously, we need to respond to our immediate situation when we see these type of uprisings take place. Do whatever is possible to rebel. And the Jewish people, those who basically has the chutzpah and the seichel to do so, to plan out, if necessary, defensive responses to every single attack that they attempt to do. We cannot remain quiet anymore to think that this problem is going to go away by trying to be positive, by trying to be, how can I say this, having a conversation. We're not going to be able to do anything. we're not going to be able to solve any of the problems in the Middle East and them continuing to attack a Jewish presence here that may have no connection whatsoever in Israel, but yet they intend to do so in order to spark rage. And once this type of interaction takes place on a different playing field, which would be more in response to their action, we will have a lot of people dead on both sides. Yes, my friends, that's the consequences of this type of interaction between the Palestinians. Have we forgotten the different problems that we Jews faced, like the hijacks of the planes, of the hijacks of the ships? Have we forgotten so quickly what are the consequences and why we need to always fall into the same playing field of being the sheep led to slaughter on a continuous basis? Enough is enough. We need to rise. And we have people in the areas of CIA and all of these different agencies that we can find out exactly where they live, where these attackers are coming from, who are their family members, and where are they located at. All that is so open, and we need to start thinking about that in these terms. We need to begin to react to bring peace and order in such a way that they would stop. And a friend of mine told me very clearly, in this type of situation, sometimes becoming weak and quiet and a lamb to slaughter is not the proper action. Many times, as even Moshe Rabbeinu basically taught their men, the tribes, to learn how to fight, learn how to respond to the enemy. And sometimes the grueling interaction that takes place between the children of Israel and the children of Amalek is one which God himself said, I will be at war with them forever. And it's time perhaps to apply the measure of identifying these groups of individuals, if not literal descendants of Amalekite, definitely their progenies, and begin to look at them in that same light. You see, when you have a group of people who basically have made a constitutional statement that we're out to kill you, we want you dead, we want to drive you out from the land of Israel, from the land, and they endeavor to do that by not only actions, as we've seen in these past 11, 12 days, where they shoot missiles. Imagine for 1 second if the Capitol, instead of January 6th, if it had been a peaceful march that basically got out of control, and instead it was 4,000 missiles heading to the Capitol, do you think our military would have not taken arms and respond accordingly? Do you think for one moment there would not have been completely havoc and chaos as a result of being attacked? Imagine if those 4,000 missiles would have all entered Eretz Israel. How many death and casualties would have been? But you see, thank God that for the Iron Dome, that for divine providence protected more than 90% of those missiles missing their target. So I think, my friends, we need to rethink how we ought to respond to our enemies. Instead of being innocent enemies or innocent victims of their attack, perhaps we need to reply and respond in a very tactful, in a very thankful, and a very quick way. As a matter of fact, there are laws called the laws of a rodef. And most of you Jews who basically studied that are fully aware of it, but you haven't put it to practice. The idea of a rodef is someone who's pursuing you, persecuting you in order to end your life. And as our sages teach us, that if you know without a shadow of doubt that your enemy is planning to harm you, you have an obligation to even do a preempt attack to save lives. This morning, or on Friday morning, had the community of Chabad in Hollandale known that this gentleman would have come in order to do harm, they could have done a preemptive attack. Call the police officers, make sure he was on the floor, and get them arrested. If that's not enough, then we need to neutralize them. And we cannot remain quiet in the midst of hatred by peace leftist activists of our own community. We just can't afford that, my friends. What will happen if we allow our defenses down? We will have many people who will basically, their blood will be shed as a result of these individuals who want to shed our blood. Are we going to wait till then? Are we going to wait until the police officers arrive, perhaps 10 hours or 5 hours after making the call? We know how long it takes for a police officer to arrive when there is an actual emergency. They usually don't show up until dead bodies are all around. And this has been experienced by many, many of us who basically are on 911 call, and they take forever until after everything is over, after the dead bodies are already lying on the floor. We cannot afford this, my friends. And I think we need to wake up. Wake up. You know someone, you have a neighbor who's planning to do some harm to the Jewish community? Call law enforcement. You need to be able to speak up. It's no longer a time to be quiet and be in silence. Open your eyes. Look around you. See what's going on. See who your neighbor are. For example, right here, where I live at, which I'm not going to say where I live at, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Muslim neighbors. Now, just because they're Muslims doesn't mean they're Palestinian Muslims. So you need to know who they are and what perhaps is going on. Because you need to know your surroundings. You need to know what to do in the event of an actual emergency. So wake up. The other thing is to the narratives of our media that has a big responsibility of creating a lot of this environment. They did it with making sure Biden got elected. They're doing it now by stirring the pot of anti-Semitism and reporting on anti-Semitism left and right, giving strength to the enemy by showing that they are succeeding. And my friends, we can't do that. We can't allow that to happen unless they come into a synagogue and they get their heads blown out. Then, oh yes, what a disaster. Oh my God, what a disaster. Is that where we're waiting for everything to boil up to? Until actual blood is spilt in defense of human life? This is what they're memorizing to do. This is what they're stirring the communities to do. And yes, I put up on Facebook a couple of videos showing the bloody hands of these individuals in Eretz Israel. How they basically shot their own people. I mean, one guy was playing around with a machine gun, and basically he loaded it up, and apparently, due to the weight, it fell down, and it basically cut down all the people that it was in front of. Children, adults, women, and all shot up because this individual was playing with a gun to celebrate their success in attacking the Jews with the missiles. You saw on television yourself with these same media how the Hamas were marching in joy as if they were one. Why didn't we get location and basically either round them up or eliminate them right there? These are not friends, my friends. These are enemies. And we have 4 enemies, maybe 5, in Congress. We need to get rid of them. And by getting rid of them, I'm talking about either by a vote or any other action that's necessary to get them and drive them out of office. We need to get them out. They're a danger to our country. They're a danger to the Jewish community. They're a danger to all sense of freedom. And they promote a belief of communism, which obviously I'm against. So we need to focus on this and pray to God that God arise and brings people up in America that will have the chutzpah to take the message and to go forward and do the right things for the sake of this nation. Unfortunately, there is a lot of hatred, and the only way to bring hatred is obviously to cut it down, to bring it down. And I see, and unfortunately I'm saying this with a deep and painful heart, but if things don't change, we're going to see a lot of bloodshed. a lot of bloodshed. And this message needs to get out there. Every single leader, listen closely, please. Deuteronomy 20 says very clearly that every single leader in the nations of the world who opposes Israel, who opposes the Jews, they will be cursed with the same curses that came upon Israel as a result of punishment. And let me say this very specifically to Alexander. Alexander, you're moving yourself into that position of being cursed. Cursed from Hashem, from the God of Israel. And I'm saying this to every single leader, including that Italian leader who raised to be able to go against Israel. Curse are you for speaking up like Chavez. Just like Chavez got cursed, so will you be cursed. And that curse is not a good thing, because it will begin to funnel down through your body, through your mind, through your heart, until your life is taken out by Hashem himself. It's called karet in Hebrew. You will be removed from the face of this earth. There's one way of losing your seat, either by vote or by being removed by the hand of God. And you're basically uncrouching to this area. Now this video that I'm producing may be that I will be removed or blocked or who knows what. I'm just saying that if you keep on pushing God's people and pushing the envelope to curse God by doing the actions that you're doing, it's going to befall you. And for Bernie Sanders and those like him who are Jews, your consequence will be like the Mosarim. If you read Rambam, it would be considered a mitzvah as a traitor to the Jewish people, to remove you from the face of the earth. Yes, my friends, according to religious opinions, this is what you're involving yourself in. And once you're declared by different courts, rabbinical courts here in the United States as a Moser, you can be removed from this world. So please, take back what you're doing. Stop what you're doing. And this is a call for teshuvah, repentance. This is not a call of trying to threaten you. It's a call to do what is right before God and man. You're not doing what is right before God and not man. So you need to stop doing what you're doing against your own people. May God have mercy upon these individuals who have decided to raise the voice of condemnation against Israel, condemnation upon the Jewish people, and of threat against the Jewish people. And those individuals that are in Congress, in those particular individuals, God curse you. I'm speaking of the four. God curse you. And let me say it again. God curse you. The God of Israel, may he curse you and you be filled with his curses, until we see you removed from office, either by the divine hand or by the vote of the people. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero with the Ways of Israel. These words are strong, and they're not easy for those who are listening, who are going against Israel and the Jewish people. And may God, the God of Israel, protect every single Jew just like he did in Eretz Israel, and may he do so also in Galut, and may his hand and his protection be upon every single Yehudim. Shalom, shalom.